You didn't land here by accident. There were no trumpets, no lightning in the sky, no angelic announcement, only a quiet tug inside your chest that wouldn't let you scroll past. That tug is not entertainment. It's an initiation, somewhere beyond your daily thoughts, beyond worry and routine. The part of you that already lives your higher life sent a clear signal forward in time. It found you at the exact second you were ready to hear this. Your quantum awakening has begun. Not as a dramatic spectacle, but as a precise recalibration, subtle, undeniable, and already rearranging the furniture of your reality. If you're honest, you've felt it gathering for a while. The fatigue that wasn't just tiredness, the restlessness that had no obvious cause, the sense that you've been standing on a threshold you can't quite name, one foot planted in an old identity, the other testing new ground. You've noticed how the world around you started to answer your inner questions with eerie timing. Numbers repeating on clocks, a stranger's sentence completing your thought, a song lyric revealing something you hadn't said out loud. That isn't randomness, it's resonance. When your frequency shifts, reality, like iron filings to a magnet, begins to organize around the new pattern you are willing to hold. But here is the friction point where most people abort the leap. The mind demands evidence while the heart is composing a symphony only felt, not seen. The old program argues for safety, certainty, and smallness. It whispers, be realistic, wait for proof, who do you think you are? The new program speaks in a different language. Body signals, soft expansions, a calm that arrives without reason. Quantum shift is simply the moment you decide which language you will authorize. Not forced positivity, not spiritual theatrics. Authority, the quiet, sovereign decision to align with the future that is already broadcasting your name. Look back for a second, gently, without judgment. Every loss you thought broke you was actually chiseling you. The door that closed taught you to listen. The betrayal rewired your discernment. The failure carved humility where ego once lived. And in that humility, your power became clean. None of this was punishment. It was preparation. Ask the version of you from 5 years ago if they could carry the frequency you're tuning to now. They couldn't, not yet. You needed pressure to become a diamond, darkness to learn to see, silence to hear your true voice. Now the static is thinning. The signal is getting loud, and yet transition aches. The ego reads the ache as danger. Your soul reads it as growth. As your inner tone rises, anything built on the lower note will feel suddenly too tight. Relationships that require you to shrink, habits that numb you, rooms where your light has to dim to fit. It will feel like loss to let them go. But loss is the mind's word for what the soul calls release. Your task is not to bulldoze your life. It is to stop negotiating your truth. When you stop bargaining with what drains you, you stop leaking the power meant to build what's next. Here's the quiet miracle that follows alignment. Decisions get simple. Not always easy, but simple. Intuition stops sounding like a guess and starts sounding like you. Energy that used to fuel overthinking becomes creative momentum. Synchronicities multiply, not because the universe suddenly noticed you, but because you finally stopped arguing with it. You move from pushing to being carried, from chasing to choosing, from surviving to composing the score you live inside. Let's name the physics of this, so your mind can relax into it. In the quantum view, observation alters reality. The moment you witness the pattern and own it, you amplify it. When you declare, I am ready, you're not performing a mantra. You're collapsing indecision and instructing your field to organize accordingly. Your past begins to make sense in retrospect. Your future begins to lean toward you in response. This is not magical thinking. It's disciplined attention. Where your attention rests, your life crystallizes. So pause. Breathe into the center of your chest. Feel that low hum you can't quite explain. The mixture of relief and anticipation. That is the doorway. No guru can walk you through it. No checklist can substitute for courage. But courage here is not a dramatic leap off a cliff. It is 1,000 quiet choices to remain with what expands you. It is the tenderness of telling yourself the truth and refusing to abandon it when others don't understand. It is the sovereignty of trusting your inner yes before the world offers permission slips. From this point forward, treat your life as a conversation with your future self. Let peace be your compass, the kind of peace that may scare your ego because it arrives before the proof. Let alignment be your strategy, coherence your discipline, and kindness your signature. Notice how resistance shows up when your frequency rises. Glitches, strange pushback, old habits flaring. Don't personalize the friction. Normalize it. In physics, every action meets resistance. In transformation, every elevation shakes loose what can't come along. Good. That means you are moving. If you feel the inner yes, anchor it now with one small, clear act. Comment 99. Only that number. It marks completion of old cycles and the opening of your quantum shift. Then subscribe so we can keep this frequency steady together. Short daily calibrations to help you return to the upper signal when the world gets loud. You found this message because the door is open. Not tomorrow, not when you're more prepared, but now, because preparation is what happens after the yes. The quantum awakening isn't a storm to endure. It's a tide to ride. You don't have to see the entire ocean to trust the current. You only have to take the next aligned breath, the next aligned step, and let the path appear under your feet. Stay with me to the end. By the time you exhale the last sentence of this journey, your inner dial will be set to a frequency that makes the old life feel like a suit you've simply outgrown. Welcome to the shift you were born to remember. There is a moment, quiet, almost imperceptible, when something inside you speaks with a confidence your current life hasn't earned yet. It doesn't argue or sell. It simply rings true. That tone is the signal of your future self. Everything else, the mental noise, the inherited caution, the looping what-ifs, is static. Your first task in this awakening is not to hustle harder or manifest faster. It is to become fluent in this distinction because the quality of every choice you make will rise or fall on which frequency you authorize. The static always arrives first and loudest. It has survival on its side and decades of rehearsal. It speaks in urgency, in absolutes, in shrinking language. Don't risk it. You'll lose what you have. People will leave. It demands spreadsheets, guarantees, applause. It frames your life as a problem to be managed and keeps you circling familiar rooms, productive, busy, exhausted, unchanged. The signal, by contrast, rarely raises its voice. It feels like space opening in your chest, like shoulders dropping without permission, like time widening even when the calendar is full. It can point you toward a brave yes or a sacred no, and both arrive with the same quiet authority. This aligns. Your body is the switchboard. Before the mind can name it, your nervous system has already voted. Expansion feels like breath finding you, like warmth spreading from sternum to limbs, like interest without compulsion. Contraction feels like a subtle flinch, jaw tight, gut braced, breath thin. You don't have to be a mystic to read this. You only have to stop gaslighting your own sensations. The mind can counterfeit logic. The body rarely counterfeits truth. Begin asking every time a path appears, does this make me smaller or more whole? Not easier, truer. Notice how the signal speaks in next, not maps. Static begs for the 5-year plan before it allows the first email, the first call, the first hour of focused work. The signal gives you a single doable step and the calm to take it. When you honor that step without interrogating the entire future, the field responds, information surfaces, people reply, timing aligns. This is not magical thinking. It is coherence. Attention is creative currency. Where you place it with devotion, reality organizes. Static tries to turn discomfort into a red light. In transformation, discomfort is often a green light wearing a borrowed coat. The unfamiliar will tremble like fear, even when it is your freedom calling. Train yourself to differentiate danger from growth. Danger contracts and distorts your integrity. Growth stretches you while preserving self-respect. If saying yes requires you to betray your values, that is static impersonating the signal. If saying yes asks for courage but deepens your honesty, that is the signal asking to be trusted. You will meet tests disguised as opportunities. Invitations that flatter the ego but drain the soul. Rooms that want your light but not your truth. The signal will not bargain with those rooms. It will ask you to bless them and leave. This is where many stall, mistaking loyalty to old versions of themselves for virtue. Understand, alignment is not abandonment. It is accurate stewardship. Each time you choose it, you stop leaking energy into what cannot grow and free that energy to build what can. There is a simple field test. When you move with the signal, your life acquires a rhythm. Not constant ease, storms still come, but less friction, more right-timed momentum. Synchronicities cluster, the right place, right time moments increase. You'll notice a shift in language, fewer explanations, more embodiment. You speak plainly. You don't audition. You don't convert. You live your frequency and let resonance do the sorting of projects, of partnerships, of pathways. Expect backlash from the old station. Static will spike precisely when the signal stabilizes. Old fears will recycle their greatest hits. People who preferred your smaller self may project their discomfort. Don't personalize the turbulence. Normalize it. In physics, a system resists change before it reorganizes at a higher order. Hold your note. Let the noise burn out against your consistency. Make this practical in your next 24 hours. Choose one arena, work, health, love, and ask for a single signal step that is both honest and doable. Take it without announcing it. Then watch for response. A relief in your body, a timely message, an inner yes that lingers after sleep. Collect these proofs like compass points. You are training your nervous system to associate safety with truth, not with sameness. That reassociation is the hinge of your quantum shift. Remember, your future self is not a fantasy you chase. It is a broadcast you learn to host. Every time you choose the signal over the static, one conversation, one boundary, one brave email, you strengthen the transmitter. Soon the tone that once felt faint becomes your baseline, and the life that once required faith becomes the life that requires memory. Of course, this is who I am. I was always tuning to this. Your mind can understand the quantum shift, but it is your body that must broadcast it. Think of your body as a living antenna, bone as mast, fascia as wiring, breath as power supply, heart as amplifier. When the antenna is rigid with stress or fogged by fatigue, the signal from your future self distorts into static. When the antenna is relaxed, present, and well-fed by attention, the transmission becomes crystalline. This is why some days guidance feels obvious and the very next day it vanishes. Not because the signal stopped, but because your instrument drifted out of tune. Begin with breath, the fastest way to retune chemistry. Slow nasal inhales expand the ribs like opening windows in a stale room. Longer mouth exhales tell the nervous system it is safe to soften. Safety matters because survival compresses awareness into narrow vigilance, while safety lets perception widen enough to recognize the signal. After just a few cycles of deliberate breathing, notice how space returns inside your chest, how shoulders unhook from ears, how thoughts lose their frantic edge. In that space, ask for one true next step. Don't chase 5-year strategies. Receive a single instruction and move. Emotion is your second tuner. Elevated feelings, gratitude, quiet joy, grounded love are not decorations. They are frequencies that lock the dial. When you generate gratitude for your future as if it were already here, your cells stop treating that future as fantasy and begin treating it as home. This is not pretending. It is rehearsal at the level of biology. The opposite is also true. Indulged resentment or doom-scrolling pump noise through the antenna. Guard your inputs. What you repeatedly feel, you repeatedly tune to, and life responds accordingly. Your posture is a truth teller. Collapsed chest, clenched jaw, gaze down. These are the shapes of bracing. Upright spine, soft throat, eyes level. These are the shapes of receiving. Before a decision, change your shape first. Stand as the person who has already integrated the answer, then listen. You will be shocked by how often clarity arrives the moment your body stops arguing with it. Expect resistance that masquerades as logic. I'll center myself when I'm less busy. But misalignment is what creates the busyness. Center first, act second, and tasks that once took hours begin taking minutes because you are no longer fighting your own frequency. Expect 2 old rooms to lose their comfort. You haven't failed. You've outgrown. The shoes that protected you on one path will blister you on the next. Bless them. Set them down. Walk on stabilization is repetition without drama. One honest breath when the email triggers you. One loving hand on the sternum when fear spikes. One return to your baseline tone when the world shouts for a reaction. You are not trying to hold a mood. You're practicing a method. Breathe, feel, listen, move. The more you run this loop, the more your nervous system associates truth with safety instead of sameness with safety. That swap is the fulcrum of embodied change. You'll know you're anchoring when synchronicities stop feeling rare and start feeling normal, when the right people arrive without you contorting to attract them, when your no lands without apology and your yes requires no speech. This is coherence, inner tone and outer actions finally matching. The field loves coherence. It will meet you halfway with timing, resources, and routes you could not have planned, because they did not exist until your frequency called them into form. If the static spikes, old shame, old panic, old stories, that does not mean you slipped back. Think of it as detox. What can't ride the new signal surfaces so it can leave. Meet it with breath, with gentleness, with the truth you are learning to live. Thank the fear for trying to keep you alive. Inform it that the mission has changed. Invite it to ride quietly in the back while your future self drives. Make this real today. Choose one ritual you can keep even on your worst day. A 2-minute breath, a 30-second hand to heart, a single line in a journal recording an alignment you honored. Micro-consistency beats macro-intensity. You are re-educating muscle memory, not auditioning for enlightenment. Give your body chances to succeed, and it will begin surprising you with how quickly it trusts the new baseline. If this lands in your bones, if you feel the gentle yes in your chest, anchor it now with a word that becomes your inner cue. Comment the word align. Let it be your private switch. Every time you whisper it, your breath deepens, your posture lifts, your attention returns to the music of your future self. Align and the signal locks in. Align and the next step appears. Align and the world answers. There is a transmitter inside you that never sleeps. It speaks in a tone you recognize instantly when you let the noise subside, a calm, steady warmth that opens the ribs and returns your gaze to the horizon. Around it, lesser stations compete for your attention. The survival broadcast recycling yesterday's fears, the nostalgia loop replaying unfinished pain, the talk show of other people's expectations. Most days your attention is drafted into whichever signal shouts the loudest, and then you mistake volume for truth. Mastery begins when you remember the dial is in your hand, and the truest guidance rarely yells. Attention is creative currency. Where it settles, reality coagulates. Invest in panic and you'll buy more reasons to panic. Invest in coherence and pathways appear that did not exist until you believed they could. You already know the texture of the real signal. It does not argue, justify, or push. It arrives as a widening in the chest, an exhale that completes itself, a gentle length through the spine. Even when it asks for a brave act, it carries peace. Static, by contrast, compresses. The jaw clicks tight, the brow narrows, breath fragments, thoughts sprint in frantic circles. In this work, the content of a thought matters less than the feeling it produces. If a thought shrinks you, it's noise. If it opens you, it's guidance. This one distinction is simple enough to teach a child and deep enough to reroute a lifetime. Do not declare war on the static. Weather exists. Trying to bully the mind into silence only amplifies turbulence. What works is preference practiced with tenderness, returning again and again to the station that carries your true tone. The return is microscopic in duration but seismic in effect. One conscious breath when the ping of fear arrives. A 3-second check, does this impulse open or close me? A half step back from the screen before you reply. These are not trivial gestures. They are hinges on which timelines swing. The future you keep praying for is trying to contact you through moments exactly this small. You will be tempted to demand proof before you trust peace. That reverses causality. Evidence follows resonance. The field coheres after the inner tone stabilizes. Yes, the old stations will flare as you retune. They will call the familiar safety, even when the familiar hurt. Let them speak. Thank the part of you that learned vigilance, then place your hand gently, firmly back on the dial. Choose the sentence that deepens your breath. Choose the room that unclenches your shoulders. Choose the action that preserves dignity in your chest. You're not chasing motivation. You are curating conditions in which guidance can be heard. Practice matures into devotion when you stop treating it as a crisis tool and start living it as your native rhythm. Wake and greet the tone before the world introduces its noise. Walk and let your steps keep time with the station you prefer. Speak and notice if your words make the throat tight or the heart warm. If they constrict, you are reciting an old script. If they soften, you are reading the new one. Eat, work, rest, and relate not to perform an identity but to hold a frequency. The ordinary hours are not a pause between mystical moments. They are the loom on which coherence is woven. Expect coincidences that are actually tuning forks. A conversation that presses an old bruise. An invitation that flatters an old insecurity. A shortcut that smells faintly of self-betrayal. None of these are punishments. Each is a tone test. Your body will tell you the truth before the mind constructs reasons. Harmony feels like spaciousness behind the eyes and weight settling back into the heels. Dissonance feels like the breath snagging high in the chest and the gaze tunneling toward a single point. Decide on that basis and let the intellect bring its explanations later. There will be mornings when the static wins. Do not dramatize it. Begin again at the smallest workable scale. Inhale slowly through the nose until the ribs widen. Exhale through the mouth until the tailbone grows heavy. Place one honest phrase in the heart. Here, now, I choose coherence. You are not failing when you forget. You are practicing when you remember. Forgetting and remembering are the in-breath and out-breath of transformation. The frequency strengthens not by perfection but by return. As the dial becomes yours, time behaves differently. Overthinking loosens its hold. Choices condense into a plain yes or no that can be felt before it is argued. Coincidences stop feeling rare. The email you were composing arrives from someone else the moment you release the urge to control. A person you quietly needed to meet appears in a way you could never have stage managed. An idea lands fully formed the second your shoulders drop. None of this is magic, though it will feel miraculous. It is physics. Attention organizes energy. And organized energy organizes matter. Guard with gentle ferocity the tone you give your attention, not as a grim discipline, but as a craft. You are the keeper of an instrument capable of translating the music of your future into the architecture of your days. Tune often, play simply, trust the song enough to let silence exist between notes. When doubt arrives, let the body answer first. Open what fear closes, lengthen what stress shortens. Breathe where panic holds its breath. In that space, the signal that seemed lost is revealed to have been patient all along, light waiting behind a passing cloud, guidance available the instant you lift your eyes. And remember, the static is not trying to ruin you. It is trying to keep you the same. Treat it the way you would treat a frightened sentinel who once guarded you well, with respect for its history and clarity about who leads now. Place a hand on your own heart and make the leadership change explicit. Thank you for protecting me then. I choose a different captain now. The sentinel will protest less when it feels seen. The dial will move more easily when force is replaced by presence. The song will grow audible, then inevitable, then formative, until one day you realize you're no longer tuning to the frequency. You are the frequency, and the world is quietly reorganizing around your note. Your future does not arrive as an argument you win in your head. It arrives as a felt shift your body can host without flinching. Before a thought forms, something loosens in the jaw, warmth collects behind the sternum, breath lengthens of its own accord, and the next timeline uses that opening as a doorway. If you try to upgrade your life purely with ideas, you will keep outrunning your nervous system, then mistake the recoil for failure. The truth is kinder. Your body is the antenna that receives, stabilizes, and broadcasts the frequency you intend to live. When it is clenched, the signal warps. When it feels safe, the signal sings. Safety is chemistry, not concept. It is blood returning from the extremities to the belly, the diaphragm unhooking from the ribs, shoulders settling like stones in a riverbed. Chemistry is influenced by behavior more than belief. A single honest exhale can tilt an afternoon. An unclenched tongue can soften a conversation. When you let the out-breath be a shade longer than the in-breath, the vagus nerve reads the message, we can afford to open, and the whole system obeys. Opening is not indulgence. It is the electrical condition required for guidance. Treat your body as an elder ally, not a stubborn machine. Every place that will not soften on command is a shrine to a time you survived. Bow to it, then teach it something new. Place a warm palm on the heart and wait long enough for the heartbeat to answer back. Name 3 sensations of genuine comfort. Heat in the hands, space at the base of the skull, a widening across the collarbones, and linger until the nervous system records, "This is home." You are not faking calm. You are installing it, one sensation at a time, until it becomes the default from which choices are made. Emotion is the amplifier that thickens the broadcast. Gratitude, relief, quiet joy are not vague sentiments. They are electromagnetic signatures the field can read. Call them on purpose, not to counterfeit a result, but to match the music of the future you keep hearing. This is why certain affirmations fall flat. The sentence is correct, but the soma is still bracing. When the sentence and the soma agree, doors open without needing to be kicked. Feel it until you are it, and notice how outcomes begin to organize around what your tissues trust. As coherence grows, old loyalties object. Tension migrates. Sleep scatters the night you make a brave decision. An ache returns just as your clarity consolidates. Nothing is wrong. Legacy programming is negotiating for relevance. Meet it as you would a frightened child. You do not argue. You do not exile. You breathe, place a hand, and say with your attention, "It is safe now." Then keep your appointment with the life that asked for you. The signal strengthens each time you refuse to treat a wobble as a verdict. Let ordinary acts become your tuning fork. Walk as though your heels are kissing the earth and watch decisions simplify. Eat like someone whose nervous system deserves gentleness and notice how conflict resolves sooner. Speak from the wide place in the chest rather than the narrow place in the throat, and observe how negotiations shift. Dress, write, rest and move in ways that preserve the sensation of spaciousness behind the eyes. This is not aesthetic. It is engineering. You are building a body that can host more light without short-circuiting. Design your environment as an ally. Light within an hour of waking tells your cells the day has begun. Dusk light tells them it is safe to wind down. Sound that is ordered, steady rain, a single cello, a human voice that feels like truth, helps the nervous system remember rhythm. Clutter is visual noise. Clear one surface, and you will feel the pulse rate of a room drop. Cool air hints at alertness. Warm blankets teach surrender. Bare feet on actual ground inform your spine that it is included in something wider than a screen. These are not niceties. They are levers that tilt chemistry toward coherence. Make a covenant with movement that calms rather than punishes. Slow strength for the joints. Spirals for the spine. A minute of shaking to let unspent stress drain through the feet. Let your gait become a metronome. Even stride, even breath. A tension on the soles until the mind follows the feet back into the present. Presence is the only place your future can find you. When a trigger flares, practice return rather than explanation. Notice the surge. Name the sensation. Nourish the body. Navigate only after your breath lengthens. This 4-step liturgy can take 90 seconds. During those 90 seconds, you reclaim authorship. You do not send emails from a spiked pulse. You do not make promises from a collapsed chest. You do not interpret meaning while adrenaline is writing the script. You let chemistry settle, then choose. Create a daily anchor that is too small to fail and too consistent to ignore. One slow glass of water with attention. 1 minute of sunlight with eyes relaxed toward the horizon. 1 page read aloud in the tone you want your life to take. Tiny fidelity builds trust. Trust unbraces tissue. Unbraced tissue carries more current. More current makes guidance obvious. This is how inevitability is engineered. Not with grand gestures that exhaust your will, but with small agreements your body believes. Expect the world to answer your coherence. When your antenna clears, synchronicities multiply, not because fate suddenly notices you, but because you are no longer too tense to notice the path of least resistance. The right line appears at the right sentence. A stranger says the exact phrase your dream required. Money, help, and timing begin to behave like weather returning after too long indoors. Call it grace if you like. It is also physics. Organized energy organizes matter. Remember that regulation is contagious. A nervous system that knows how to downshift lowers the noise in rooms simply by entering them. People breathe deeper around you without knowing why. Arguments abort before ignition. Children settle. Meetings land. This is service without performance. Your body broadcasting order into a field that forgot its own rhythm. You are not imposing a mood. You are reminding reality of its native tempo. On the days the old station blares, let the static be part of the score. Mastery is not static's absence. It is the speed of your return to signal. Put one hand on the heart, one on the belly. Find the square inch of ease you can welcome. Breathe until welcome grows, and act only from the place that feels like a widening. Repeat without drama. The antenna gleams, the transmission clears, and your future, which has been singing the whole time, finds a body steady enough to carry the song. Everything you have walked through, the false starts, the sudden rushes of certainty, the nights where doubt pressed like a stone on your chest, has not been random turbulence. It has been precise calibration. Life has been tuning you the way a luthier tunes a fine instrument, tightening what was slack, softening what was brittle, sanding away what could not carry a clean note. The friction was not punishment, it was preparation. Now you can feel the difference without needing anyone to confirm it for you. The old frequency feels cramped, metallic, transactional. The new one is spacious, grounded, quietly inevitable. That sensation in your ribs, the subtle widening, is coherence. Coherence does not plead or perform. It simply hums until your choices match its music. From this point on, your work is not to force outcomes, but to hold the tone. When noise rises, choose breath over panic, presence over performance, one honest action over a perfectly architected plan. Let synchronicity be your compass and embodiment be your proof. When yesterday knocks, the offer that keeps you small, the conversation designed to pull you back into the costume you've outgrown, bless it, breathe, retune, and keep moving. You are not rejecting your past. You are releasing its shape so the essence can stay. The people who are meant for your next chapter won't need you to shrink to be loved. They will recognize your new signal and relax in its clarity. Remember this law of the field. Attention is creative currency. Where you spend it, reality accrues interest. Spend it on the signal you choose. Gratitude that loosens your chest, peace that lengthens your exhale, purpose that steadies your gaze. And you will watch conditions reorganize themselves around your inner tone. One consistent note can retune a room. One resolute decision can reorganize a life. One human being in coherent alignment becomes a lighthouse, not by announcement but by presence. You don't convince the ocean to calm. You steady your breathing until the waves remember their rhythm. Anchor it now. Unclench your jaw. Drop your shoulders. Take a deeper inhale than you usually allow. On the exhale, imagine the old timeline slipping from your frame like a heavy coat you forgot you were wearing. Ask yourself, with reverence and without hurry, how would my future self move through this exact moment? Then do that. Not tomorrow, not when you're ready, but now as a ritual of respect for the life that has been calling your name since before you had words for it. Readiness is not a state you wait for. It is a state you cultivate with a single honest action repeated until it becomes your baseline. You will still encounter echoes. Old patterns may flare, familiar doubts may rehearse their lines. A few rooms might tempt you to play the old role one more time for applause you no longer need. When that happens, do not dramatize it and do not judge it. Call it what it is, an echo, the last reverberation of a station you've already tuned away from. Echoes are not proof of failure. They are proof of distance. Smile. Thank your nervous system for trying to keep you in familiar terrain and retune with breath and feeling. A few clean breaths, a hand over your heart, a return to the tone. This is not avoidance, it is guardianship. Guardianship does not mean living on guard. It means curating with love what you allow into your field, the foods, the words, the screens, the rooms, the timelines that either strengthen or scatter your signal. It means noticing the micro-choices, the comment you choose not to make, the argument you release, the 5 quiet minutes you take under open sky, and honoring them as architecture. Dramatic gestures are not the source of transformation. Consistency is. Momentum prefers honesty to spectacle. Each small alignment is a golden thread, And those threads are how you weave a new world. Let this also be said clearly. Your coherence is not just personal victory. It is service. When you stabilize your tone, you become a strange attractor in the field, a pattern that invites chaos into order without force. People breathe easier around you. Decisions simplify. Possibilities clarify. This is leadership without a microphone. Frequency-first leadership. You will not need to argue for a new way of being. You will demonstrate it. Your presence will give others permission to choose the same. To sustain this, give your body a daily vote of safety. Breath before screen, water before noise, stillness before sprint. Your nervous system is the antenna that receives the future you have chosen. Treat it as sacred hardware. When the mind chases 10 steps ahead, bring it back to one honest step now. One email sent from clarity. One boundary expressed without apology. One nourishing meal cooked in peace. One walk that ends with a better question than it began. Let simplicity become your strategy. Complexity was a symptom of misalignment. Coherence is elegantly simple. If these words met you where you needed them, subscribe now so we stay tuned to the same frequency. One click is not about algorithms. It's about keeping a living thread between your present self and the future you are already learning to embody. And if this transmission stirred a calm certainty in you, seal it with a small, tangible gesture. Drink a glass of water as an agreement with your new timeline. Write a single sentence in your notes that begins with, "I am now the person who," or step outside and let your eyes rest on one true thing, horizon, tree, cloud, for a full, unbroken minute. Tiny is powerful when I is pure. Thank you for walking this edge with me, not just to listen, but to remember. You are not trying to earn a life that fits. You are choosing to live the life that already matches your soul. Hold your tone, guard your peace, move with quiet inevitability. Until our next activation, keep your breath low and wide, your attention on the signal and your heart steady. I'm grateful you're here. See you soon.